do you do when the child you love walks out of your life? Today, we're going to talk about that quiet grief that many parents are carrying with them, the devastating feelings of having an adult child walk out of your life and cut ties altogether. And it happens more than you realize. If this is your story, you're not alone. There's a reason that this generation is cutting ties from their families. And I want to talk about that. So stick with me until the end, too, because we're going to talk about the hope, the healing, and the life you still have ahead of you. I've heard from so many people who are grieving the children who no longer call, they don't visit, or they've cut their ties altogether. As our generation was raising our kids, we pictured regular get togethers, phone calls. We poured our hearts out raising them. Some parents sacrificed a lot of their own life so that their children will have a better way of living than they were raised. So when an adult child walks away, it's like a rug being pulled out from under us, and the fall is devastatingly painful. So we grieve the loss of that child. We grieve the death of a relationship. And we grieve the loss of all the things that we dreamed would be happening in our lives. Those grandbabies and all the good times we thought we were going to have together. And in our minds, we thought our children would be there as we grew older. There's no closure. There's just silence and questions. So what's driving the rise in this separation between adult children and parents? This newer generation, the one that's raising kids in this day and age, are navigating life much differently than we did. Every generation is different. One is not necessarily better than the other. We just change. And this generation is more open to talking about mental health issues than our generation was. We often feared that seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist because it created a stigma that meant you were crazy if you did that. And this generation is more likely to set boundaries than past generations. We were raised to respect our elders and certainly to obey our parents. Because the mindset of the two generations differ so much, with that shift, this generation is more likely to cut ties with the parents for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the reasons are clear, and sometimes they're not. Society encourages younger adults to quickly cut off what they believe is a toxic relationship, and that often happens with no explanations. They may have an old wound that never healed, and something new happens that triggers that wound. And so they react instantly by cutting off ties due to society. Sadly, many separations are caused due to a difference in political beliefs. And it could be that the adult child is simply trying to find themselves. So here's what I've learned. There are a few patterns that stand out in all of this. In this current day, we are encouraged to seek therapy when we encounter problems. Therapists, rightly so, will encourage a person to cut off the toxic relationships, as we mentioned earlier. And whether you believe your relationship to be toxic or not, the adult child could very well believe that in their minds there was some form of toxicity in that relationship. Is that a word? Social media is a big influencer in our lives today, and it often amplifies cut them off without regard to any type of repair strategies. Also, the newer generation is typically less tied to hometowns, churches, extended family, the same way our generation was or is. Without those same ties, it's easier for them to distance themselves. They're taking jobs in other states, farther away. And of course, experts emphasize that estrangement is not always wrong in cases of abuse, addiction, or ongoing harm, distance can be necessary. Some individuals prioritize emotional safety above family, and they choose to separate rather than working through any kind of a conflict. Estrangement is rarely about one particular reason. It's typically something that has built up in the child for some time, and they're now reacting to a lifetime of not communicating about that issue. Unfortunately, many loving, devoted parents are being cut off without clear communication or a path to reconciliation, and that leaves the parents heartbroken and bewildered. Without knowing the cause, they often start blaming themselves. What did I do wrong? How did we ever get to this point in our lives? I have two dear friends who are experiencing this exact situation right now. My friend says you can't get away from it. Every day you see something or someone that reminds you of your child and the void that is consuming your life. This is a heart-wrenching situation. Another friend shared that he discovered he had grandchildren that he had no idea that he had. And though he hasn't been able to see them, his wife's grandchildren love him as if he was their own grandpa. He said he put all of his memories of being a good dad in a box and he put it on a shelf in the closet. The memories are still there, but he doesn't go and look at that box very often. He knows he was a good dad. He believes that he was. And he hopes that someday his adult children will realize that too. But in the meantime, he loves on his adult stepkids and he relishes the time that he spends with his step-grandchildren. So what can be done? This is what I was told. Heartbreak and confusion are real, especially for parents who gave their best. Let the grief be real too. Allow the tears, journal about it, pray about it, talk with trusted friends, a pastor, or a counselor. But mostly, separate your sorrow from your self-blame. You're not to blame. Realize there may be two truths involved. They say, one, you may have made mistakes. And two, you may have also been a very loving and devoted parent, because both can happen at the same time. So maintain a posture of openness to reconciliation without chasing after them, as hard as that may be. Give them their space. You can't manipulate them back into your life. This protects your dignity while preserving the possibility of reconciliation. And as people mature, often they gain a new perspective about life and they may come back into your life. You can still send a birthday card or a holiday greeting to keep the lines of communication open on your end. But do it with no expectations, because expectations can end with a hurtful disappointment. So above all, remember this. You are still a parent. You're still worthy of love. You're still valuable. And your story doesn't end just because someone walked out of your life. So while you wait, you can still have a meaningful, productive life. So as you walk through this painful journey, keep in mind, an estrangement is a chapter in your life. It's not your whole book. You're not alone in this journey. You're not forgotten, and you're not beyond repair. There is still life, there's still purpose in that life, and there's still love ahead of you.